Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. This is a very effed up monster family. It's known as the Council. And the Council is comprised of Zakharum priests that just, went really bad. Now, I can't really blame them, because Mephisto kind of worked on them for a long time, and he turned them evil. But the Council members are definitely demons at this point. They're classified as demons, in fact. The leaders of the Zakharum have been irrevocably turned into serve Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. Once faithful and generous leaders of their people, the ruling members of the High Council have been twisted in form and spirit, and now take their followers down a darker path. The ruling from the shadows and speaking only through ensorcelled priests, these corrupt holy men abuse their positions and misguide the faithful into attacking those who follow the light. Their betrayal to their people does not go unrewarded by Mephisto, however, as they have been granted abilities far beyond those of their mortal followers. There are two other variations of the council members. The first one listed spawns in the Travancore and the Durance of Hate level 3 is lightning immune, and the second one spawns only in the Travancore and is fire immune. Council members can cast hydras, which are really nasty, and they can also heal themselves, same as the previous monsters we talked about, the Zakharum priests, and they do not passively regenerate health. They also have one of the highest HP pools that I've seen of just about any monsters, with a maximum HP pool of 22,844, which is kind of insane. There was also a guest version of the monster, which has much lower HP, and on top of that has no resistances whatsoever. This monster only exists as a minion to Bartuk the Bloody. Now, the versions that we know and love, the ones that are in the Travancore Council, these guys, are actually particularly nasty. They have a lot of modifiers that can definitely hurt you and make it very difficult to kill them. First off, they have 25% block chance, which may or may not be active depending on how the game is functioning. Block chance is always written, but it's not always active, but 25% chance nonetheless. They have 50% physical damage reduction in hell difficulty, which does make them particularly difficult for melees, and a lot of the times they end up being physically immune through modifiers. They have no magic resistance. They have relatively no fire resistance, except for the specific variant of the council members that are immune to fire. They have relatively no cold resistance, and there is one particular variant of the council members that is immune to lightning, with the others having relatively no lightning resistance. They also basically have no poison resistance with only 33%. In general, they tend to be much stronger than even these stats belie because they are minions of stronger monsters. And in fact, we should probably talk about the monsters that they are minions of. So there are several council members. They're basically super unique monsters or quest monsters that are in the game. There is Ishmael Vilehand, who is always cursed, and he kind of has a poisoning kind of effect. There's Geleb Flamefinger, which is always fire enchanted. There's Torque Ice Fist, which is always cold enchanted. Wyan Voidbringer, which always has teleportation. Mayfor Dragonhand always has extra strong. Brem Sparkfist always has lightning enchanted. And Bartuk the Bloody is the Act 5 variant, which I believe is lightning enchanted as well. I can't remember right off the top of my head. But in general, each one of them has their own minions. And every single set of those minions is going to gain the bonus of its upper. So, for an example, if we were to look at some of the minions and kind of put them side by side, well, if you monsters is Geleb Flamefinger, which is fire enchanted, then the monster is definitely going to be very immune to fire. Because, well, if he's the 120% resistant monster, then he's going to be 195% resistant to fire, and so forth and so on. So each one of these tends to be extremely nasty. They all have different modifiers, of course, in addition to these. So another very interesting thing is that each one of these, although they are guaranteed to have these modifiers, will also spawn with other modifiers. In hell difficulty, they can have several modifiers. And those modifiers also, depending on what they are, can pass down to each one of the minions. Now, some modifiers don't, like Aura Enchanted, even though technically they will get the effect of the aura, they don't have the auras themselves. But other modifiers, like Extra Strong, Extra Fast, like Magic Resistant, and so forth and so on, will apply to the minions as well, giving them additional immunities and making them even stronger. In general, when it comes to the council members, there is a whole cross-healing problem where they literally heal each other back and forth over and over and over again. Looking up the heal itself, it's called Zacharium Heal, and it's actually a percentage-based heal, which makes it even worse. So in higher difficulties, especially like player 8 and whatnot, the monsters can have a considerably large amount of HP. If 22,844 is their base, and you roll players 8, which increases their HP by a rather large margin, and they can have other modifiers like extra strong, which can increase their HP even more, this can potentially lead to monsters that have over 100,000 HP. And if the monsters are capable of healing, like 50 or 60% of that HP every single time they cast a heal, well, then you're talking about like 50 or 60,000 HP that they're able to heal per cast. So the higher difficulty versions of the council members can be much more difficult to deal with. The best way to deal with them, honestly, is to disable them from being able to do anything. Isolate them was one of my favorite way of dealing with them, is to force them into different locations. Once you have one of the council members in a different location where they can no longer heal each other, you can very easily just pick off that particular council member and move on. They also have some very interesting other modifiers, which they don't seem to do melee damage so much as they seem to have like almost like a spell that they cast. Although they do also do a melee attack. When you watch them, they have this like lightning bolt attack that they fire off. And the lightning bolt attack seems to be based on some sort of lightning damage calculation. And I've noticed that in some situations, if the elite spawns with multi-shot, the multi-shot does apply to the lightning that they're firing, and the lightning can actually hit multiple times, and it does massive amounts of damage with the multi-shot. I've actually had a couple times where I walked up to the council and they had like multi-shot, like extra strong, and like some other modifiers, and the lightning was coming out in triple, and I was taking massive amounts of damage, and I literally just like crumpled onto the floor. It's very rare to get the modifiers all set up together to cause that to happen, but when it does, you always wonder what the hell's going on. In Nightmare difficulty, there used to be a bug, if I remember correctly, where the fire enchanted version of the monster could actually kill just about anything due to a bug in how fire enchanted work in Nightmare difficulty, which was kind of nutty and kind of insane. The hydras are also particularly nasty for mercenaries because they dish out a rather large amount of damage in individual hits that can stack up over a particular period of time and basically murder your mercenary. One very easy way to deal with the hydras specifically for your mercenary is magic damage reduced by. Not magic damage reduced percentage or anything or resistances, but magic damage reduced by is a specific stat in Diablo 2 which just simply reduces magic damage by a flat amount. The hydras themselves don't really do a particularly large amount of damage per shot. They just do a lot of shots. And what this means is that having a significant amount of magic damage reduced by can actually significantly basically neuter the damage of the hydras in general. To give you an idea, using something like Vampire Gaze in D2R is a very easy choice. Vampire Gaze has 15 MDR, which is pretty dang good, and can be combined together with other items like, for instance, a Gladiator's Bane, which also has, I think, another 15 MDR, or I think it might be 18. If you pull up Hydra for D2R and you look at Hydra's damage, Hydra's unsynergized damage isn't very high. At the minimum of level 1, it's only 14 damage to 19.5, which means that 15 MDR will completely cancel out the fire damage from the minimum roll on a level 1 Hydra. And as the Hydra increases, yes, the fire damage also increases, but you can also reduce some of that with resistances as well. And by the time you're done, if you have 75% fire resistance and some MDR, you can usually cancel out almost all of the unsynergized Hydra and basically have like nothing left over for the mercenary to worry about. There's also fire absorption that you could potentially use and a couple other options. You can also just simply overcap his resistances with like a Kira's and a Guardian Angels, which tends to work fairly well as long as he has something to leech from. But the MDR approach actually works better because it doesn't require any leech for him to stay alive. It's actually the opposite. It just completely cancels out the Hydra and makes it so that the Hydras basically do no damage. This also works versus players too. If you're having trouble with the hydras, MDR can be extremely potent versus hydras, even on players. And physical or fire absorption like that that's on a dwarf star also works fairly well. Of course, you can't put a dwarf star on a mercenary, but Dwarf Star does have fire absorption on it specifically, which allows you to heal some of that effect, although it also contains MDR 15. So not only does it allow you to absorb some of the fire damage, but it will also cancel out a rather large portion of the fire damage as well before absorbing it. Because I believe it works in that order. It's the MDR first, and then the fire absorption is actually, I think, last. I could be wrong. But in general, Dwarf Stars work really good versus Hydras and almost completely cancel out the effect. And they have 100% extra gold for monsters, which makes them pretty good for gold farming and Council, which isn't bad either. Overall, the Council members are just nasty. Like, they generally tend to have a bevy of effects, which is completely random, and it's very hard to predict. Sometimes they can have conviction, sometimes they can have fanaticism, sometimes they can have might, sometimes they can be, I mean, they're always cursed, because one of them is always cursed no matter what. They generally tend to have a myriad of resistances, which does make them a little bit difficult to deal with. And, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can potentially tackle the council. One way is just simply to do so much damage that they don't have any chance to heal. If you hit one and you kill it, well, it's not getting back up. Another way is to lock them down with crowd control effects, like leap to cause them to get knocked against the walls. You can use freezing effects to stop them from moving. Of course, most of the time, item find barbarians don't want to freeze them because, well, they don't get to hork the corpses. And in general, like, there's a lot of ways that you can potentially deal with them. I like to use a couple different methods. My freezing arrows on does a really good job with them. I can just lock them down, kill them all relatively quickly, and not even have to worry about it. I've also done several runs on my necromancer where I literally just telestomp them with a huge army, and again, don't even really worry about it. I just do them last, take my entire army with me, telestomp on their head, and curse them and laugh. Barbarians have a myriad of different ways too, like Berserk bypasses most of their resistances, so they can potentially use that, although it does make them relatively weak to return damage. There's a lot of various tricks you can use when you're fighting them too. So if you find yourself overwhelmed, I think the easiest way to deal with the overwhelm is to simply go through this doorway. So assuming that you've already killed the council once before and unlocked the door, you should be able to have access to the stairwell. And if you ever find yourself in trouble, it's very easy to just use the stairwell to escape danger. You can, of course, teleport out from here, and you can get yourself some healing, potions, whatever it is you need to do, and you can come back. You can also use this to save your mercenary too. So if you find yourself in a situation where your mercenary is about to die, it's very easy just to go down here. Another interesting side effect of going down is that when they cast Hydra on you, it can potentially follow you down the stairs, which is pretty funny, as you can clearly see right here. Because apparently what happens is the cast of Hydra happens before you go down the stairs, and then when you go down the stairs, the cast of Hydra finishes after you go down the stairs. So you end up getting the Hydras following you down the stairwell, which is pretty funny. There are definitely some that are more important to kill than others in this combination. So one of them is Ishmael Vilehand. He has the Cursed effect, which is going to always amp you every single time you're fighting these guys. And of course, having amp on you constantly is definitely not going to be a good idea for any kind of fight. As you can see, even with me wailing specifically on Ishmael Vilehand, they're still able to heal him and keep him up. So it does become somewhat of an issue if you're not capable of dealing with this. Hell Council is definitely one of the more difficult, like, fights. Once your character is really well sustained, you've got good resistances, your HP is on point, your damage is on point, and your mercenary generally is fairly well equipped so that he can survive. You can usually handle Hell Council no problem, but it's definitely one of those things that's a test for your character. If you can't handle Hell Council, well then, I mean, it's not a big of a deal. You just need to regroup, fix your gear, get some better resistances. I mean, I've got like half broken equipment right now, but I'm just playing around with this to show you how the council works. The council is really good on terror zones too. So when it's terrorized, it's actually a really good place to farm. Multiple monsters, multiple good drops. Just in general, just a really nice place to farm. The other set of council members is actually down in Durance of Hate level 2. And we can go down there and take a look at them. There is, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 council members down in Durance of Hate level 3. And might take us a while to get there, but well, why not? The three council members at the door are kind of the nastiest in my opinion, because one of them I think is always aura enchanted, and a lot of the times that ends up being conviction aura, from what I remember. I I really don't like dealing with conviction aura in this game because it is very nasty. It's one of the more powerful auras. Strips you of all your resistances and also strips you of all of your defense as well. So basically makes you into a little baby. And let's see. I hate to run around down here because it is a horrible zone. Like, this whole zone is just ugh. Ugh. I mean, there's Urdars down here, which are pretty nasty for melees. There's undead Stygian dolls down here, which of course are also pretty nasty for just about everyone. And then on top of that, I really just dislike the vampires too. I mean, even when this place is terrorized, although sometimes I'll come down here just simply because, you know, it's a halfway decent EXP farm when it's terrorized, I really don't enjoy coming down here. It's, I mean, the Urdars aren't so bad, and the zombies aren't so bad, but when you have Urdars and undead Stygian dolls, or like undead Stygian dolls and these guys, the Dark Lords that just sit there and spam fireballs at you, um, it's not a fun combination, that's for sure. Womp. Oh, I thought for sure that was it. Unfortunately, Durance of Fate level 2 is one of the unreadable zones, and I am proving how bad I am at reading the zone. Some people tell me that they have a trick for reading Durance of Fate level 2, and I swear I try the tricks, and they never work for me. Maybe they work sometimes. Maybe they work like 25% of the time or something, but it feels like most of the time, maybe it's just my bad luck, is I end up with these like Durance of Hate level 2 maps that are just the most ridiculously stupid maps where the entrance is in like the middle of the area or something. And oh my god, I freaking hate them. It kind of looks like it up there. Of course, good luck. Good luck. Now, there's definitely multiple council members in Durance of Hate level 3. The first three are grouped up in a cluster, or is it two? I can't remember if it's three or two. But the first couple are grouped up in a cluster at the doorway. One, May for Dragon Hand, is on the left, I believe. And the other one, which is... Why am I forgetting his name? Wyand Voidbringer. I think that's his name. Wyand Voidbringer is usually on the right. Both of them are honestly pretty easy to kill. But a lot of the times when you go to fight them, they're surrounded by these stupid things, the Dark Lords. And it honestly just makes the entire process annoying because you have all these Dark Lords shooting fireballs and everything at you while you're trying to kill them. Eh, mm, mm. I mean, you can kill them. You don't have to. They're definitely there. But a lot of people will just simply skip them and kill Mephisto because, quite honestly, Mephisto is easier to kill than the council members. Another very interesting thing that I'm glad I got the chance to remember is that the council members' healing ability does work on Mephisto. So if you are unlucky enough to have the council members close to Mephisto, the council members can heal him, and I'll see if I can demonstrate for you that as well. So let's go take a look at the council members, and I'll drag them over to Mephisto so you can see them heal him. So it looks like we have Brem Sparkfist, which of course is lightning enchanted, aura enchanted. And then we also have, where's the other one? There should be one other council member here. I thought it was two, but I could be wrong. And then we have Wyand Voidbringer over here. And he is, of course, always teleportation. And then on the other side, we have Mayfor Dragonhand, which is always extra strong, I believe. This time he's extra strong, extra fast. And to show you that they can heal Mephisto, I'm going to go ahead and damage Mephisto real quick. And then we're going to drag him over. And as you can see, Mephisto is now at full health. So if you are fighting Mephisto, if you're coming down here specifically to fight Mephisto, one thing I would recommend is that you at least make sure that the other council members are not within earshot, because if they are within range, they will spam heals on Mephisto. And there's quite a few council members down here, which can make your life a living hell if you're trying to kill Mephisto quickly, which, you know, kind of sucks. Every single one of them, by the way, can heal Mephisto, including the ones over here if you fight close enough to them. And also the one over here can also heal Mephisto. In total, I think, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's like 6, I think, total. There's like 6 council members down here that can literally just spam heals on Mephisto. Now, granted, they don't always use their heals. So you might get lucky and they might just stand there like a derp and not do anything. But as you can see, Mephisto is now back to full health, which didn't take very long. Other than that, I don't really know if there's much more to talk about when it comes to the council members. Working on effective ways to kill them is important, and understanding that you're going to need resistances. You're going to need things like absorption to help you out with like fire res and things like that. Decent amount of health, and obviously ways to counter things like the amplified damage. In general, like, they're a good test of your character. Like, if you can handle Hell Council relatively easy, then your character is well built. If you can't handle Hell Council relatively easy, then your character is probably not well built, and you might want to adjust and try and figure some things out, like fix your resistances, work on better damage output, find ways to lock down the monsters. Sometimes it just comes to picking the right crowd control. Like, if you're a bear druid, using Shockwave to lock down some of the monsters with the stun effect. If you're a paladin, you can utilize Conversion, or you can utilize Smite to lock them down with stuns. The barbarian can lock them down with leaps, and can also use stun effects on them. The necromancer can use things like dim vision or confuse or all sorts of other effects to lock them down in various ways. Decrepify to slow them down with a clay golem can turn them almost into, you know, like snails, essentially. The Amazon has some pretty good ways herself with freezing arrow, and the sorceress has lots of freezing effects as well. There's tons of various ways you can stop them from healing, and you can work on controlling them with crowd control. You just got to figure out your specific method to deal with the council, and once you have a good method involved, then you just abuse it. I think that's pretty much it with the council members. I really don't think there's anything else. I wonder if I could find any information on their lightning attack, but I really don't know. I feel like their melee lightning attack is kind of hard to, they're like, I don't know, I think it's like melee attack 2, which is their lightning ability. Yeah, I mean, it's not really that important. To be honest with you, their lightning attack isn't like that crazy. It only really becomes deadly when combined with the right modifiers, and even then, it's a very rare phenomenon. So I wouldn't even really worry about it. When it does happen and you end up getting one shot, though, you'd be like, ah, Ginger was right. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you're enjoying the content, because this is my full-time job, and it helps if you support the channel. And as always, keep watching.